Good morning, whisky fans. Dram number 6. Let's get to it. Need some sort of extraction tool. 6th of December, Dram number 6. Hoping for a good one. A little bit of a Ribena note. A little bit weak. Need to stop sniffing out of the sample bottle. Too eager, that's my problem. So probably another dark one, probably again the darkest that we've had so far. Sherry, wine, port, what do you think? Definitely something. It's fruity, dark, a little bit of a grape note. Quite a lot of a grape note. Red grapes, berries, blackcurrant, Ribena. Bit jammy, a little bit of a youthful, slightly bitter, slightly rough note as well. A little bit of a chalky note, which I think that the chalkiness combined with the red grapes and dark fruitiness always makes me think of a red wine cask. As well as some underlying sweet maltiness. I think definitely some sort of grape-based cask gone into this. Let's see how it tastes. Quite thin. Definitely a 40% whiskey. Not the best. Definitely going to be towards the bottom half of the lower board, the leaderboard, the lower board. It does seem a little bit superficial. Although it's possibly just because it is a little bit underpowered. I think the nose is better than the palate. And the nose is fair if you like heavy grape influence, and I suspect that this is probably red wine. Then the nose is pretty good. It's quite juicy. There's hints that this is a young whiskey, but it's not too much. Getting a little bit of kind of elderflower cordial note on the nose note. Again, another fruity note. Do we add water to this? It's already very weak, but it might help it open up. But I think our first resort should be to put a lid on it, put some heat into it, encourage that flavour, just coax it out. I think that makes more sense rather than diluting it even more at this stage. But the colour of this doesn't really look like red wine. It looks like either... well, it looks artificially coloured, doesn't it? Just put a little bit of heat into that and see if we can pick out anything else. But I do think that the underpowered nature of this is looking like it's going to slot in near the bottom between probably the Jura and the Glengoyne. I'm not enjoying this as much as the Glengoyne, which was maybe a little bit overpriced. I always think that Glengoyne 10, you really want to get it on offer to make it worth buying. Whereas the Jura is probably, the Jura 12 is just not worth buying, in my opinion. And I think this one is going to slot in between those two. Yeah, getting some more maltiness come through. Creamy, malty, sweet, cask and malt. Like a young but reasonably well matured malt whiskey, but really nothing special. It's a little bit of a shame because I think on the nose there are hints kind of reminiscent of that Parkmore Auchroisk, the 7-year-old that is at the top of the leaderboard at the moment, and I think it's all to do with that fruitiness. I think that because the Auchroisk was finished or matured, can't remember, in Madeira casks. I think it's finished, and this again smells like it's seen some red wine casks, I would guess, although I guess red wine on the Auchroisk as well. Getting some nice graininess coming through, some toasted grain notes cutting through the red grapes and dark fruits. And that's always the frustrating thing for me. I would bet money that this is a 40% whiskey, and as with almost all 40% whiskey, it can quite often smell nice, but then when you taste it, it just runs out of steam. It's not got the power to back it up on the palate. And I think that's because our human noses are much more sophisticated than our taste buds. It's much easier for a human nose to pick out all the flavours and complexities than it is to actually taste it on the palate. Which, in my opinion, at least me personally, I always find that these low strength whiskies, they just don't have the flavours on the palate to back up the nose. Quite a chalky bitterness on the palate, which would be okay if it wasn't the main flavour, but it kind of is because there's not a lot else going on there. Probably a cask finish, low strength, shows signs that it could be better than it is, but probably a poor presentation. Let's see what we've got. Where's it gone? That'd be a good magic trick, wouldn't it? Tamnavulin. So which one is it? It's the French Cabernet red wine cask finish. Single malt Scotch whisky, that's 40%, I bet. Yeah, 40%. I can't remember if I've reviewed this one. I've reviewed a few Tamnavulins. This one, the double cask, I quite like. I think it's got massive potential. It's very cheap. And because it's not too messed around, it's just a straightforward bourbon and sherry maturation. It's good stuff. It's worth the price. It's worth £20 all day long. I did review a Tamnavulin which was red wine. I can't remember if it is the Cabernet or something else, but I didn't particularly like that. I thought that the white cask matured Tamnavulin was a lot better. But either way, Tamnavulin, because of the presentation, it kind of relegates itself, it limits itself to being a budget whiskey. And I can kind of hear people limbering up, warming up their keyboards as I speak, to say that a Tamnavulin, which is really a £25 whiskey at best, and a poor presentation in that, probably doesn't belong in a £130 Advent calendar. And they're not wrong, probably. So I think this one, I did say, didn't I? I just panicked there that I hadn't actually said where this is going in the leaderboard, because I meant to be saying this before I judge it, but I did say that it'd be going in second to last place between the Jura and the Glengoyne. Definitely not as good as that Glengoyne, which, despite being another low strength, kind of very entry level product, is better than that Tamnavulin. So it's probably not a coincidence that the bottom two places, and this is all judged blind, the bottom two scorers are both Shite and Mackay. And if you didn't get the joke, that's my little joke for White and Mackay, the company that owns Jura and Tamnavulin. And White and Mackay, obviously, they're a company that is reluctant to give us good presentations, and they're a company that really needs to work on a few of its distilleries, because both Jura and Tamnavulin are capable of producing really good whiskey, but we're not given it. This is not it. So another slightly disappointing one. And that also explains the colour of that, because it looks... I was going to say it looks like it might have had a hell of a lot of sherry in it, but we now know that it hasn't, because it's a white and Mackay product. It has a crap ton of artificial colouring in it. It's fake. Me personally, I would have been much happier, and I might be in the minority here, if we'd have had the Tamnavulin double cask in there. It's actually a cheaper product than this French Cabernet red wine finish, but I think it's better. Might be interesting to some. If you like this, great news, it's quite cheap, and if you're in the UK you can get it on offer quite a lot in supermarkets. So if you do like this, absolutely have at it. You are a winner today because you found something that you like that's very cheap. But I don't think that's a great one. So better drams tomorrow, please. Thanks for watching, and cheers.